Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing part 2 out of 3 of making a new grinding wheel arbor for our tool and cutter grinder. We've got some fun things going on today. We're doing some tapered cylindrical grinding, and we're doing some thread cutting, and so here we go.
Yep. Well, next I'm going to finish this face, and I'm going to rough this diameter down, and then I'm going to put this chamfer on here. This chamfer looks like a 60-degree chamfer belongs right there. So I'm going to put that on, and then we're off to the tool and cutter grinder to grind this taper onto here. Just measuring up this angle here so that I can recreate it on the new arbor. So I'm all set up. I have the 30-degree angle, and I'm going to put this feature on the new wheel arbor.
I've started working on this next setup here. What I have so far is I have the center line of my motorized workhead directly in line with the center line of my tailstock, and both of those are directly in line with the center of the table. Now my first choice would have been to take a collet and grab this old arbor in here and then do my dial indicating off of that. But that's not going to work. There's so much wear on here, and it's worn tapered. And at the end of the day, the collet just is not going to hold it properly. So I've gone ahead and put my 4-jaw chuck on, and I'm going to dial it into that. Now that's pretty boring stuff, so I'm just going to do that off camera, and when I get real close to being somewhere with this, then I'll get you guys back in on it. I've got a lot of this setup done now. We've got our new drive dog driving the new arbor that we're building in here. You can see them. Everything running nice and true. I've got my wheel exactly at center height. Again, center height, center height, center height, super critical if you want a taper to turn out. So it's exactly at center height. I'm getting ready to dress it. I have a diamond dresser here. It looks kind of like this. It's a piece of some sort of metal with little diamond bits impregnated in it. I've got one here that's clamped to the table, so I'm going to dress this. It's going to get rid of all the dark you see in there. It's going to make this run perfectly true. It'll expose fresh cutting edges and just give us a better finish. And I'm going to use this handheld one here just to put a corner on here, because if you look in here, I've left some extra material, and that extra material I've left here will become a radius. So once I get my wheel all dolled up, I'm going to come in with my wheel and touch off right here at this edge, and then set an end stop. That'll establish one end of travel. And then I'm going to come back out with my wheel, come down, and then this will be the small end of the taper. So I'm going to touch off here, and then once I establish that 0, I'll come back to this 0 and start making passes in this direction with my grinding wheel.
Well, I'm just measuring this up. See how far I have to go. Where's my trusty sample? Oh, that. Of course, it's in the machine. I'm looking around for it. It's like, oh, it's kind of being itself right there. Another beautiful thing about doing a taper on this machine is I can do things like this because this T-slot in the table is running perfectly true to the taper. And so I can move these things back and forth and nothing's going to change as far as the taper itself. So I just got that a little too tight into there. I'm going to back it up a tiny bit and then lock everything back down. Will not change my taper. So I'm just going to give that a little skim. So this is the old wheel arbor, actually with a wheel on it, and I just pulled it out of the machine there, and I just want to measure what size taper I'm shooting for. The small end, 475, the big end, 525. Okay, so that's where we want to end up on our new wheel arbor that we're building, and since this is out anyways, I'm going to take this opportunity to check the fit of this in there and see if it appears that we're on the right track here. So I can see and feel that it's getting tight here first and it's not here. I can see it when I just spun it a little. I rubbed some marker off here. Also when it was in there, I don't know if you'll pick this up on camera. Can you hear that little clunk? So I'm going to adjust my machine slightly to take a little more off of the small end. And that's easy. I'll just loosen up my table and rotate this whole thing ever so slightly with a dial that's bang on center, and I'll just go for, you know, I don't know, half thou plus here is where I'm going to start. So if I'm on center height with my dial, this should run perfectly zero right here. And it really does. That's perfectly zero. So I'm going to get it, I'm going to adjust my table until I get plus half a thou down at this end, and then we'll try it again and see how that works. So I've got it dialed in a little over half a thou plus down at the end that's hitting first, because we want to make that smaller so the whole thing touches together. I'm going to put my grinding wheel back on, and we'll take another lick off of this, true it up, and then we'll try it again until we get it perfect, or as close as we think we're ever going to get it, and then we'll carry on bringing it down to size. Yeah, I think that's touching all the way evenly. I think we're real close. I don't feel any wiggle anymore in any direction. And I mean, it feels like it just wants to be in there. I mean, this truly is a trial and error kind of thing. It's kind of somewhat rubbing everywhere, somewhat evenly. So for now, I mean, I'll check again before I say I'm done with it, but I think that would probably do right there. Definitely has come down size a lot still. But as far as the fitment goes, ooh, yeah, she's there. I'm hoping this is the final test, final check. I've got 5 thou left on my diameter to go, and I'm just gonna run this in and give a little scrape test one last time just to make sure nothing's changed and that I'm super happy, and then we'll finish this guy up. The taper, that is. Oh yeah, right in the middle. Can't do better than that. Perfect. So I've got my radius, I'm happy with the radius. I've got 4 thou left on the diameter to bring it to the finished size. So I'm going to go ahead and take a few passes off at 1/2 thou. I'm getting a real nice finish there, so I'm just going to go real easy on it, and because I want to end up with a nice finish as well. So that's the size. Super happy with that. I know the taper's close to bang on as I'm ever going to get it. Finish is really nice. I'm happy with the little radius I got in here. I'm happy with the blend I was able to do into this back face. I've got some marker on there, which, you know, is making it kind of look a little funny, but I can clean that up, and I'm happy with the way it looks. While this is in here and so nicely supported, I'm just going to take this opportunity to deburr the end and throw a little chamfer on it, make it a little more durable. Should do. So here's what stage we're at. We've got, of course, our new wheel arbor and our old wheel arbor, starting from this end. The taper's finished, got a nice little radius in here, similar to what the original had over here. And then the face comes up, and then we've got this back clearance here. And here's, you know, you can tell it's pretty close to matching that guy. If you come around the other side, we've got our relief cut in here, again, to match what's on here. So now it's back into the lathe to cut this thread that you see here and counterbore this end out for this bolt head, and also drill the thing all the way through so I can get this draw-in bar out of the old arbor and into the new arbor. So that's what's next. For those of you who've been hanging around throughout this process, you may recall that a while back we made a new nut for our old arbor, but the problem is the wear on these threads is basically tapered. So by the time I could get the nut on all the way, because these threads aren't that worn, and you can see it starts out super gross and sloppy, and then by the time I get in here, it's quite tight. It's actually quite nice when I'm way in there. But now I want to use this new nut with my new arbor, and because I custom made the nut to fit the worn threads, the threaded hole in here is actually smaller than nominal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a tap through. That'll bring these threads right up to nominal. Then when I cut the threads on my new arbor, I'll fit them to this nut and get it fitting hopefully just right. And that way it'll all be back to nominal thread sizes. This is just taking the very slightest skim out of here. This nut was just a shade under nominal. Now I'm going to set my quick change gearbox to 18 threads per inch. So that's number 2 here. And number 3 here. That should be 18 threads per inch. Now I'm going to engage my thread chasing dial. Oh, I see some crud on there. I'll clean that off first. That looks good. I'm setting the end, the finish position of the threads. I'm just going to match that up to the existing here. So my quick change gearbox is set. I've got my thread chasing dial engaged. I have my split nut engaged with my thread chasing dial at 0. Also, that's happening exactly where I want to stop cutting my thread. My crossfeed handle is, the handle is horizontal and on the left, and it's set to 0. So now I just need to touch off my compound rest and I can begin cutting this thread. As usual, now this is my finished position for the thread, and as usual I'm going to set my dial with about 80 thou on it after it touches the cross slide, and that's where I'll know to pull out every single time on every pass. Now that I've taken the slightest little cut here, like 2 thou deep, I'm going to check that with my thread pitch gauge and just make sure that I am in fact cutting the proper pitch, and that looks good. Back to 0. I put some feet on there. I'm just going to wait for my 0 to come around.
Almost.
Not quite. Should be getting close pretty soon here. Just in case I'm pushing up a burr on top on the outside diameter of this as I'm threading, I'm just going to give it a lick with some emery because I don't want that burr giving me a false reading on the nut. I've got that nut on actually backwards right now, but I'm calling that an absolute, well, perfect's a bit of a strong word, but there's zero slop or wiggle in this. I'm perfectly happy with that fit. Well, that's it for today's show, guys. Hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, please like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you next time.